My mother-in-law, Vivian, stayed with me for 7 years. I won't say that she was a big nuisance in the beginning. We had a decent relationship for most of the 7 years she was in my house. Yes, I owned the house that I and my husband Xander lived in. Vivian had moved in when she lost her job. She said to us, "If you let me stay with you, I can help you with your kids when you have them. I know that you're planning to have kids now. That would actually be very helpful, Vivian. Sandra and I both will go back to work after having kids, so we need someone to take care of our kids." "I can be that person, Maya. I am good with kids and won't even take money. Consider it a thank you for keeping me in your house rent-free." "That's a great arrangement, Mom. I think we will be happy to have you help out." That was the arrangement when Vivian moved in with us. We agreed to support her and pay for all her expenses. In return, she promised to take care of our kids. We were already planning to have kids back then, so it all seemed like a good idea. Unfortunately for us, we didn't know just how Vivian wanted to take advantage of us. 7 years passed before we were able to have kids. I found out that I had fertility issues. I got pregnant twice but lost the child mid-term. It was one of the darkest periods of my life. Vivian was of no help during this time. She criticized me a lot and told me that I was doing something wrong to lose children like that. It hurt a lot, but I was too down in the dumps to do anything about her. Vivian stayed and I just dealt with it. Finally, after 7 years of trying, we had our rainbow baby. My son was born healthy and we were all over the moon. But Vivian wasn't that happy. Initially, she showed a lot of interest and happiness, but as my pregnancy progressed, she started to get controlling and yelled at me when I didn't do things her way. Mind you, I was following the doctor's instructions to the T, but she wasn't having it. She acted like a know-it-all and spoiled a lot of precious moments in my pregnancy. As a result, our relationship also became strained. Still, I kept her around because I wanted to give her a fair chance. However, Vivian kept escalating her antics and tried to parent my son differently. She was so overwhelmed that Xandra and I had to sit her down and tell her to back off. She didn't take that well and started to form her own plans. I was still at home with my newborn when she approached me with a ridiculous demand. She said, "I need to talk about something, Maya. There is going to be a change of plans here." "What do you want to change now, Vivian?" "A lot of things should be changed in this house now that you have a child. But anyway, you consider yourself a modern woman, so I know you wouldn't listen to me, but I will put my foot down on a few things." "Oh, really, Vivian? Tell me what you're going to put your foot down on." "I won't be taken advantage of anymore, Maya. I won't let you use me again." "And how am I taking advantage of you? I'm very confused right now, so you need to cough up whatever is on your mind." "Well, since you don't take my advice on how to raise your son, he doesn't feel like a grandchild to me anymore. So when I look after him, it can be considered babysitting. Since I am not going to babysit any kid for free, you need to pay up." It took me a while to figure out what my stupid mother-in-law was talking about. When I finally realized that she expected me to pay her for babysitting my child, I was honestly in shock. First of all, it was always agreed that Vivian would babysit my child for free. I mean, that's the arrangement she had when she and my husband talked about letting her move in with me. But now she was telling me that I needed to pay up. What was more concerning was her comment on my son not being her grandchild. Vivian said that she didn't consider my child to be her grandchild since I was not raising him on her advice. I said, "Let me get this straight, Vivian. Did you just say that you don't see my son as your grandchild anymore?" "Well, he is my son's child, but what relationship does he have with me when I don't even get to have a say in how he's raised?" "You are not the mother or the father, Vivian. You don't get a say in our parenting decisions." "No, apparently I'm only good for looking after the child according to your terms when you are off to work. Sounds exactly like I'm a babysitter here. I won't let you make me work for free, Maya." So Vivian has no problems mooching off of people and living with them for free, but God forbid they ask her to look after her own grandchild for free. She just wouldn't let anyone take advantage of her. I wonder who's taking advantage of who in that situation. But anyway, I was already in a bad mood and wanted to just end this drama as soon as possible. I decided to hear her out and see how much money she wanted. I said, "So you want me to pay you babysitting fees?" "Yes, I asked around and I figured out how much I should be paid for my services." "How much do you want, Maya?" "I did the maths to make sure you don't make me work for less, and by my calculations, you will pay me about $10,000 a month." Guys, she literally said that she wanted me to pay her $10,000 a month. I was seriously shocked and felt my eyes go wide. Can you imagine paying $10,000 for babysitting a newborn kid? Mind you, guys, there was literally one kid and no one else. She was charging so much for one kid, it was just bizarre. I was gobsmacked as Vivian went on a rant about how she Googled prices on the internet and saw that people paid $30 per hour for babysitting. Vivian also said that people with experience and expertise charge way more, so she deserves some incentives too. Guys, this woman literally doesn't have experience in babysitting. Vivian used that line because she's older and raised a son. That's it. Somehow she thought it made sense for her to ask $10,000 for babysitting her own grandchild. I was actually considering giving her some money to get off my back, but this woman was asking way more than what's normal. Vivian was acting like her logic made a lot of sense and I would just hand over the cash to her as she wanted. But I wasn't going to do that. I actually raised my voice a little and said, "You must be truly delusional if you think I would give you so much money for just babysitting. You need to give me money if you expect me to look after your child. My services are not for free." "This is literally your own grandchild, Vivian." "So what, Maya? I told you I don't consider him my grandchild anymore. You need to stop paying me because I won't look after your kid for free anymore." Is that really your final answer? Think again, because I am not giving you $10,000 for just babysitting. Take it or leave it, Maya. You can find another babysitter if you will. I won't be your free labor anymore. Okay then, let me think about it. Come to me when you have made a decision, Maya. Vivian said that and walked away. I actually had to sit down a little to understand what was going on. My mother-in-law, who lived in my house for free, was actually asking me for money to babysit her own grandchild. It was just bizarre. What made things worse was that she moved into the house under the guise of helping me with my child. But now she was even refusing to think of my son as her grandchild. All of this was because I wasn't following her directions in parenting my newborn. As Vivian's words started to sink into my brain, I started to get really angry. A lot of things were going through my head, and most of them were things I should yell at Vivian for being such a moocher. She was really taking advantage of me and my husband. I thought about what I should do and came to a conclusion. Don't worry, there was no way I was paying her $10,000 for watching my child. I would rather leave him in daycare or quit my job to stay at home until he's old enough to join daycare. There is no way I would give Vivian $10,000 on top of hosting her for free and paying for her utilities. I am not made of money, and neither is my husband. I made a preliminary decision on this issue and waited for my husband to come home. When Xander came home from work, I immediately told him what his crazy mother told me. He listened to what I said and was as surprised as I was when Vivian told me what she wanted. Xander actually sat down too, out of shock, and said, "Something is horribly wrong with her if she thinks we will shell out $10,000 for her." This is insane, Xander. Your mother has been living rent-free in my house for 7 years. She doesn't pay for anything and instead wants us to give her money. She is truly delusional if she thinks we will do what she wants. We kept her here because she wanted to look after our child. That's what I thought, Xander. She said that herself, and now she is refusing to consider our son her grandchild. Since I'm not taking advice from her, he isn't her grandchild anymore. I am beyond frustrated at this point, Xander. We need to do something. I agree with you, Maya. Mom has been acting really weird since we had the baby. I guess now that we finally had a child, she has realized that she doesn't want to take care of a kid for free. And she said that she doesn't consider our son her grandchild. That crossed a big line in the first place. Something needs to be done, Xander. Xander actually agreed with everything I said. He was furious, just like I was. We have been bearing her burden for years, only to be met with hostility and demands for money when we asked for one favor. We were tired of being taken advantage of by Vivian. It was truly time to do something about this problem. I was going back to work soon, so a decision needed to be made immediately. After having a long discussion with my husband, we both agreed on our plan of action. We approached Vivian after a week and sat her down to talk. She looked all smug, probably thinking that we had given in to her stupid demands. She said in a chirpy voice, "Well, have you decided on what you want to do? I mean, I need an advance and 1 week notice before starting my babysitting duties." Mom, will you really take money to babysit your own grandchild? This is really ridiculous. Of course I will take money, Xander. If you wanted me to work for free, you should have made your stupid wife listen to my advice. You have no right to tell me how to parent my child. Your son and I had both set this hard boundary a long time ago. You never should have entertained any other thoughts. I came to you with an alternative, didn't I? I won't tell you to be a parent, and you can pay me money to babysit your child. Simple and easy. Okay then, if that's what you got to say, you leave me no other choice. I took out my phone and quickly sent Vivian an email. I had already drafted this email in the morning and was waiting for my husband to get home from work before I sent it to my mother-in-law. Xander wanted to talk to his mom once before proceeding with the plan. I guess he was hoping this was all a joke and his mother wasn't as entitled as she was proving to be. But Vivian was adamant about her stance and confirmed that she was a money-hungry leech. So he just sat there and sighed while I did what I should have done a long time ago. I sent Vivian the document and asked her to check her phone. She happily opened the message, expecting it to be an advance payment or something. But as she started to read the document, her eyes went wide and her mouth hung open. She looked at us and said, What is this?" "Can't you read simple English, Vivian? It's an invoice." "What are you talking about, Maya? Why would you send me an invoice for anything? Why does it say I owe you $250,000? Since you are too lazy to even read an email, Let me tell you what this is about. This is an invoice for the rent money that you owe me for the last 7 years. The look of shock and fear on Vivian's face was absolutely amazing. She was literally looking like a deer caught in headlights. She froze on her spot and all her smug attitude was gone in the blink of an eye. What are you saying, Maya? Why would I pay your rent and bills? We never agreed on paying rent. We also never agreed to pay you for babysitting our child. But here you are, asking for money. So, if you want to get paid, you need to clear your rent payment first. This is ridiculous. You never talked about rent before. I won't pay you anything. We never talked about rent because you offered to look after our kid in exchange for not paying rent. So pay up, and we will start paying you money for your babysitting services. Vivian now knew that she had been caught. I had meticulously printed out an invoice that showed my mother-in-law how much money she owed me in rent and other bills. I took into consideration a lot of things like market rate, grocery bills, electricity bills, etc., and made her an invoice. It was very detailed, and I actually spent a lot of time making it. I was at home, so I had plenty of time anyway. I even ran it through Xander, and he thought that the prices I put up were fair. Vivian had no place to complain about that. She was just surprised that I would ask her to pay me rent. She looked all offended and said, "I am not giving you a single cent. I never agreed to this. Xander, what is this madness? Has your wife gone crazy after giving birth?" "Don't talk about her that way, Mom. My wife has done nothing wrong. She pointed out a very reasonable rate for your upkeep in our house." "You are taking your greedy wife's side too, Xander. This is really unfair. I never agreed to pay rent." "You moved in here to babysit our kid in the first place. Now that you have gone back on your word, we can go back on our word too." Okay, fine, you win. I will look after your stupid child for free. I can't believe you would go to these lengths to make me work like a slave. Vivian thought that her remarks were going to make us feel guilty for making her work for free. She huffed and puffed and finally agreed to babysit our son for free. But I knew better than to trust Vivian with my son when she didn't even consider him her grandchild. Not to mention that she had just called my child stupid. She had agreed to babysit for free only when she was caught in a trap. Now she was backtracking, but still showing her irritation towards us because she wanted to guilt us. Unfortunately for her, it had the completely opposite effect on us. I actually smirked at her and said, "You know what, Vivian? You don't have to babysit our son. I will leave him in daycare once he's older." "So now you have decided that you won't need my services anymore? Good for you, Maya. Looks like you do have some shame." "Yeah, I don't really want to leave my son with someone who isn't interested in watching him for free, so I will be placing him in daycare. Maybe I'll hire a babysitter as well." "Whatever, as long as I don't have to look after your child, I'm good." "You will change your mind after what I say next, Vivian. Now, since I will be placing my son in daycare, we don't need you around the house anymore, so you will need to move out within a week." I watched as Vivian's face turned red in shock. She looked at me open-mouthed as soon as I finished saying those words. She stood up and turned to me so fast that I was surprised she didn't get a whiplash. She was visibly in distress, but turning red. I didn't know whether that was from anger or embarrassment. She sounded pretty offended and said, "How dare you say that, Maya? Just because I refuse to be a free babysitter, you can't kick me out." "You are not a babysitter, and you are not a grandma out of your own accord. So I don't see why I should host you and feed you for free anymore." "What is that supposed to mean? You agreed to let me stay here." "And you have outstayed your welcome, Vivian. You also refused to adhere to your promises, so now I think it's time for you to go." Vivian was now shaking with anger and fear. She knew well that if I threw her out, she would have nowhere to go. At least not in the city. She was a little scared but tried to cover it up. I believe she was trying to look authoritative, to pretend that she had the power. She turned to my husband when she saw that I wasn't budging. She pointed a finger at me and said to Xander, "Will you allow your wife to kick me out, Xander?" "I'm no one to stop my wife, Mom. This house is hers and only she gets to decide who stays here." "But you are her husband, so this house is yours as well. She is bound to let me stay here if you ask her." "Well, here's the problem, Mom. I don't want to ask her to let you stay." Vivian had clearly turned to someone who wasn't even on her side. Xander was completely on my side. He isn't one of those mama's boys who get all sentimental over their mothers and ignore all the red flags. He is a true family man and would always put his wife and child first, as long as they are in the right. He understood the situation well and took my side in this. Vivian couldn't believe this and said, "What? You want to kick me out too?" "That's right, Mom. You have lied to us and taken advantage of us for 7 years. We took over all of your responsibilities and you refused to do the one thing you had promised to do. So now I don't see why we should have you around anymore." "I already told you that I will babysit your son for free. I don't know what the problem is." "The problem is that we didn't feel comfortable leaving our son with you anymore. The way you talk about him and refuse to call him your grandson is a big red flag. We can't oversee that, so we have no choice but to do this." At this point, Vivian knew that no one would be able to help her. She started to backtrack and say that we were overreacting and this wasn't okay. We didn't listen to her because she wasn't making good points anyway. Sandra and I were both exhausted from wasting money on her and didn't want to do it anymore. She had misused our trust and generosity, so we ignored her and went about our way. The next morning, Vivian was doing her best to be all sweet with us, but we ignored those attempts as well. At night, I gently reminded her about moving out within a week, and that's when she started to cry and said, "Will you really kick me out? A poor old woman who had nowhere to go?" "You are not a poor old woman, Vivian. I'm pretty sure you can earn enough money by babysitting someone else's kid." "Please don't hold that against me, Maya. I'm willing to look after my grandchild." "You made it clear that you don't consider him your grandchild anymore, so I don't see how this will work." "There is no point in making excuses, Vivian. I am not going to host you anymore. We are done here." My mother-in-law cried and begged me not to kick her out. She was at it for days until I was forced to threaten to call the cops on her. That got her scared and she started to pack. One of her sisters offered to keep her if she got a job, so she was forced to leave the city and move in with her. She wanted to live a life of luxury and not pay for a thing in her life, but she ended up shooting herself in the foot and lost that one place where she was living for free. It's been a long time since I've gone back to work. My son has stayed with me since I was able to quit my job to look after him. With one less mouth to feed after Vivian left, we have the means for me to be a stay-at-home mother. I'm actually enjoying my time with my baby and think this was the best outcome ever. Meanwhile, Vivian has called us to cry about how her sister doesn't treat her well and makes her contribute to chores. She wants to be with us, and you can bet your money that I and my husband have said no and will never allow her back in our house again.